Power does not corrupt, fear corrupts. Perhaps the fear of a loss of power. John Steinbeck. Power is, well, powerful. With power, you can build a great nation, create a productive society, make innovations, push humanity forward. On the other hand, power can cause atrocities, topple civilizations, and destroy the lives of many people. That's why the balancing of power is integral to a society. In the novel, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, power is the driving force of the narrative. While reading Lord of the Flies, I questioned why Jack was so upset that he lost the election. I believe that Jack developed a lust for power. He had a taste of it through leading the choir and felt threatened when it was taken away. The novel states, even the choir applauded, and the freckles on Jack's face disappeared under a blush of mortification. He started up, then changed his mind and sat down again while the air rang. Ralph looked at him, eager to offer something. The choir belongs to you, of course. They could be the army, or hunters. They could be. The suffusion drained away from Jack's face. In this excerpt, Jack experiences extreme shame from losing the election. He lose not only the opportunity to lead all the boys, but also lose possession of the choir. He'd have no power. Another question I had was why the color red was so common when following Jack. His clay mask is red and white. His hair is also red. He and his choir boasted about the pigs they killed, along with the red blood that flowed from the carcass. Even the rocks at Castle Rock, including the one that killed Piggy, was red. Through these reasons, I linked the red archetype to Jack. Red symbolizes passion, anger, and violence, all of which can be associated with Jack. Jack's red hair can be linked to his hothead personality. The novel describes Jack. Tall, thin, and bony, and his hair was red beneath the black cap. His face was crumpled and freckled and ugly without silliness. Out of his face stared two light blue eyes, frustrated now and turning or ready to turn to anger. Jack's hothead personality and, in relation, his short temper makes it obvious why he would want power. With power, you can control others and demand respect. Jack would be able to do whatever he liked with no fear of objection. Golding's worldview is that when a person holds too much power, it corrupts them and leads them to do whatever they must to keep it. Many are familiar with the proverb, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Towards the end of the book, these messages become clear. However, the first instance I noticed of this was in the middle. Throughout Lord of the Flies, Jack constantly betrays Ralph's orders, as when Jack took the choir out for hunting instead of tending to the flame on the mountaintop, and Jack's consistent breaking of societal rules put in place by Ralph. Jack does not enjoy being commanded and instead prefers to take power into his own hands, leaving the group. In the final chapter, Cry of the Hunters, Jack hunts Ralph down like the pigs he so passionately pursued. This happens after Ralph challenges him at Castle Rock, refusing his will and dueling him with wooden spears. Jack sees Ralph as a threat to his power, someone who could potentially cause a revolt and usurp his godlike status among the boys of the island. Ralph's vision for society stands in stark opposition to Jack's, order over chaos. The fire is another symbol that exposes Jack's hunger for power. In the chapter The Shell and the Glasses, Jack plots and goes through with the plan to steal Piggy's glasses for the purpose of starting a fire at Castle Rock. We can infer that he does this to throw another feast that satisfies his tribe and possibly bring more boys to his side. Fire can be ultimately linked to power. Fire, like power, can inspire hope. The fire is what the boys need to maintain to escape the island. However, fire can also be destructive when not carefully controlled. It broke out and burned part of the mountainside and killed Lillian with the birthmark. Power can cloud one's mind, causing them to make rash decisions and think themselves to be a god. We can observe this phenomenon through Jack clearly on page 150. Power lay in the brown swell of his forearms. Authority sat on his shoulder and chattered in his ear like an ape. Authority, and in close association power, is described as a deafening ape that produces noise so great that it causes Jack to grow his already large ego and sense of godlike status. Returning to Jack's use of fire and his pursuit of Ralph, he lets fire get out of hand at the end. In an attempt to kill Ralph, he sets fire to the jungle to try to smoke Ralph out. If it weren't for a nearby Navy ship, it's possible that the boys could have died. Even if Ralph was killed and the boys survived, the resources on the island that the boys were living off of would have burned to the ground along with the jungle. The jungle being where many boys obtained food through hunting pigs and picking fruit. The rashness of Jack's decision, as previously stated, would have costed all of the boys their lives if luck wasn't on their side. Jack's desire to keep his power and destroy anything that got in between that would have literally costed the end of society for the boys, savage or civilized. Golding's worldview is valid in today's society, and especially during the time when the book was initially written. Published 3 years after World War II, Lord of the Flies was heavily influenced by its characteristics. I drew parallels between Hitler and Jack. Both had vast amounts of power to do what they wished, and both resulted in the destruction of the society they built. Just as Jack turned the boys to savagery and left society in ruins, Hitler left Germany fragmented. His drive to win the war against the Allied powers was so great, he exhausted Germany's wealth on military power to the point the public was in disrepair. People starved, the economy was destroyed, many were injured, etc. Lord of the Flies teaches an important lesson concerning power in the society, how it should be used, and how it affects people who have too much of it. Restraint is a virtue that, when applied to power, causes humanity to march onward.